Happy Wednesday. Welcome into PTN Extra. I'm Evan Kamick. Joined this week, as I always am, joined by Mike Irwin, but also a special guest this week. I like to say you're a special guest because you haven't been on PTN Extra too much. That's Jacob Morris, usually off on Wednesdays. He's hanging out with us in the office today. We've got a lot to talk about. TJ Tomlyanovich is going to join the show much later from the Arkansas men's track and field team. But more importantly, I think what everybody wants to talk about has been what's going on with the Arkansas football program over the past couple of days, and specifically with Madden Iamaleava. 2 days ago, Arkansas Athletic Director Hunter Yurachek made it very clear on X that they will enforce any NIL agreements violated by student athletes moving forward. He wrote on the digital website this afternoon, or a couple afternoons ago, I should say, I have spoken with leadership team at Arkansas Edge and expressed my support in their pursuit to enforce their rights. Under any agreement violated by our student athletes moving forward, we appreciate Edge's investment in our athletes and acknowledge the enforcement of these agreements. It's vital in our new world of college athletics. We look forward to continued dialogue with all parties in resolving these matters. While no student athlete was named in the statement, the news comes not even 24 hours after Madden Iamaleava announced he'd be entering the transfer portal and following his brother Nico, who just left Tennessee, to UCLA. He only spent this spring season with the Razorbacks. Like I said, Mike Irwin, Jacob Morris here with me to break this all down. And Jacob, I'll start with you. You have this situation. It's very unique. I love what you tweeted a couple days ago about the future documentary that's going to be made about this era and the Iamaleava family. But let's start with you and your opinion on this. What really do you think transpired of a guy who could have been up to the backup quarterback this fall, not even giving Arkansas a chance and playing a full season here on the Hill?
Yeah, I think that's where obviously a lot of the frustration stems from. If you're an Arkansas fan, and I can only imagine if you're an Arkansas staff member, right? You know, you put in the effort and the very clear large amount of resources to flip a guy like this from UCLA. He goes through spring practice, and then, you know, they didn't play a spring game. So he didn't put a jersey on one time, right, and ultimately makes this decision. It's really frustrating, and it's kind of like we were saying, it is a flash frame of where we're at with college athletics. But, you know, there was a lot of backlash against Hunter Yurachek in terms of, you know, why would you come out now and say this? And I don't really think you have an option in terms of, there were conversations about would this, and I'm curious to get your perspective on this, Mike. There were conversations about would this turn athletes off of Arkansas or whatever it might be. If somebody is entering into an agreement with the intention of breaking it, that would be the only person that would be put off by this. Not everything is black and not everything is white. There's a sliding scale with this. If there is valid reasons for somebody to transfer out of Arkansas or they serve their time with the Razorbacks, I don't believe that this would be the same approach. It's that this was just a clear agreement broken and he never played it down for the Razorbacks. I think you are right to pursue and try to get some of the money back that you forked over.
Mike Irwin, let her rip.
Yeah, the reaction I've seen so far to this has kind of been the opposite. It's been like all of a sudden, all these schools have started to wake up and realize, hey, we ought to have a buyout clause because a lot of them don't. And I think it's going to trigger this all over the country, and the fans are behind it. And so I think the days of just doing whatever you want, I've mentioned this before, if the NFL operated the way college football has been operating lately, it wouldn't even be around. It would be unmanageable. Yeah. And yet athletes, they've done this poor athlete stuff, and you've still got fans out there saying this garbage. But the fact of the matter is they've been doing anything they want. And this, Nico doing what he did, coupled with what Madden did, suddenly puts the focus all over the country of, there should be some controls here. The thing that was different about this, now Arkansas has lost some guys. All schools do. But I think they at least played some. Yeah. What made this unique was he took apparently $500,000 and never did anything for it. And so they're going to want half of it back. Now, my only reaction to that is I would make it 80%. I think it make it more prohibitive. And if you can get every school to put that language in, and look, I give Hunter Yurachek a lot of credit for having actual real lawyers, and I've read this in articles that have been written about this. National writers have said, wow, they got a lawyer. And this is not going to be something you can wiggle out of because it was written by a lawyer. It's legal. You signed it. You're going to have to give the money back. Now, I'm figuring that UCLA will just go, okay, here's your $250. You know, that's not any big deal to us. But the impact that I think it's going to have moving forward may change NIL forever. Because if you start putting huge buyout clauses, 80% or 90% or whatever, you got to stay to the end of this contract. And if you don't, you're going to have to pay most of it back. And I think that changes everything.
The big question is, when is it going to become unionized? When is there going to be unions in college athletics? I think we're still a little ways away from that. But more importantly, I was watching Pat McAfee yesterday, and they had legendary New York Giant head coach Tom Coughlin on the show. And as somebody who grew up in the area, I love Tom Coughlin, love the Eli Manning years. But what Coach Coughlin said that was really, stuck out to me is, what are we teaching these kids on a personal level about this? Like, where is the commitment where you're going to go to somewhere and learn for a year? That was what college athletics was about 10 plus years ago, when you're somebody who's like Madden, who knows you're going to go into a situation behind a guy. You want to sit and learn. Now, look, there's a lot of reasons, and we don't have to break down all the reasons maybe he left. And again, being closer to home, playing with your brother was big, but he said he wanted to play in the SEC and be at the top level of college football. Reality is UCLA is not the top level of college football. Let's call it as it is. They are a bottom feeder in the Big Ten. They were this past year. Probably won't be much better this year. We'll see what Nico does. But it's, what are we teaching them on a human level that I think really gets overshadowed by this, and just saying, well, I don't like my situation, so I'm just going to leave. And that's cool. Like, you have every right to. But there comes with consequences. And I think that's what college athletes have to learn.
Yeah, not to cut you off, Mike, but I think to your point, I think that there's a balance with this stuff, and it's become, Mike has talked about this a lot, it's become, if you say kind of what Evan just said, right, all of a sudden you're not pro player, and you're not, that's not it at all. I don't know anybody at this point that is banging the drum of players shouldn't make money or they shouldn't be paid what they're worth. It's just, there has to be some level of accountability on both sides, and I don't think that's crazy to say. And if you want to look on the bright side, Mike has talked about this, and a lot of people have talked about this throughout the country. This has been just ridiculous in terms of Nico, in terms of Madden, and all the way that this has gone. But it's been so ridiculous that it might be something that finally kind of pushes the ball down the hill and gets this thing moving in the direction it needs to. Because it's opened the eyes of not just hardcore college football fans, not just folks that cover Tennessee or cover Arkansas, but people that aren't following college football at a 24/7, 365 basis. They're saying, this is how this is working. This is how the sport is operating. Something needs to change. And maybe that's a positive that comes out of all this.
Well, the revenue sharing plan has yet to be approved. But with revenue sharing, there was a real question. Okay, schools could pay a certain amount to their athletes, and then the athletic director would decide what sport got how much, but there was a cap. And theoretically, that puts all schools in the same boat. So theoretically, it would eliminate, we got more money than you, we're going to get all the best players. The problem was always NIL. And what we heard was that they're going to reduce the NIL. They've hired a private company. They're going to come in and investigate every NIL deal, and they're going to limit it to its actual real value. The problem with that is it's going to open you up to lawsuits, because who determines what a real value is? What I'm hearing now is they're now wanting to bring NIL inside the school too. In other words, it's not done with outside sources anymore. If you want to give money to an NIL program for a school, a collective or whatever, you give it to the athletic department, but they're going to put a limit on that too. So everybody's got the same limit. You got the same revenue sharing limit, you got the same NIL limit. And so if they actually make this work, college football will go back to, well, I get this amount at this school, this amount at that school. I like this school better. I like these coaches better. My parents went there. I have a good friend that went there. I went to a game there, and I like that school. It'll go back to that, not, oh, wow, give me more money and I'll go over here.
Yeah, and the irony of this whole situation is that Madden flipped on commitment day, was going to go to UCLA. Now he goes to UCLA, but you've got a guy in Grayson Wilson who's an in-state prospect and came to the Hill, thought he was probably going to be quarterback 3, ended up being quarterback 4, but still stuck it out in the spring. And that's, a testament to the kind of person that Grayson is. And again, it's not bashing Nico and Madden, that they're really Madden specifically, that he wanted to leave. Maybe a little bit, but it's the idea that it's not the prospect you would have thought would have left, because, we watched the Polynesian Bowl, Jacob, you and I did here, and we were like, where's Madden? Where did he play? And then you see him take a couple of sacks and not incomplete a pass and only play 2 drives. So it's all of now, where does Arkansas go from here? Luckily, the quarterback room is there with Talon and KJ Jackson, who, Mike, like we've already mentioned, you're very high on, and now Grayson Wilson. You also have Blake Boda, Austin Ledbetter in that room as well.
And they're trying to bring in another one, too.
Right, exactly. So there's still a lot of talent in that room, but it's just funny the way I guess things work out sometimes.
Yeah, and something that is, I've seen on Twitter a lot, right, it is kind of Razorback fans trying to rewrite history in terms of like, well, Madden sucks. He doesn't suck. He played 1 year of high school football and was flashing the way that he was in spring camp. He had teammates, he had coaches talking about how good he was. It's the same thing as Nico. Nico, none of this has been handled correctly by his camp, by Tennessee, all the above. Nico's still a really good quarterback, and he's probably going to put up monster numbers at UCLA. But to your point, it now puts Arkansas in a specific situation with the quarterback room, and that to not just keep banging the same drum over and over again. But, if you're a coach or you're a GM, how do you go about putting together a roster when you could have a guy that you flipped on signing day leave before you even hit summer? That's a guy that you thought was going to be a foundation for you moving forward. And now it's just Arkansas's got to go a different direction. But in a way, I like this for Grayson Wilson. He said all the right things. He said, this surprised me. I didn't know about it when he got asked about it. And he didn't say a bad word about Madden. He didn't say a bad word about the staff. He showed up. He's done his job so far. In a way, I really like this for him. It's an in-state kid. He deserves it if nobody else.
Remains to be seen what's going to happen with Nico at UCLA. He's under an unbelievable amount of pressure right now. If you're not a UCLA fan, they probably want you to fail.
Yeah.
All over the country, people are going to want him to fail. Look at every time he goes out to play a game, he's going to be hit with that thing the Razorbacks basketball players did when they went to Kentucky. It's going to be like, let's focus hate on this guy. Now, he may be able to overcome it. I don't know. But he's not playing on a good team. He's good. But what does that mean when you're a good quarterback and you go to a team that's kind of, all of a sudden, and you've got all that pressure on you, then how does that affect his brother? If he's there a year or whatever. It could affect both of them. Now, do we blame the parents? I don't know, because I don't know about, I suspect that when somebody gets around to writing a book about what really happened here, you have an agent that is a meatball. A money-grubbing meatball that didn't care. He just wanted them to make more money because guess what? I get more money. Because that's what I'm hearing over and over again about guys that hit the transfer portal. A lot of them don't really want to do it, but the agent's in there going, hey, it's not the players that are advertising themselves. An agent, this is not supposed to be allowed, but it's the agent that's contacting these schools and saying, hey, my guy's going to get $400,000 next year. What will you give me? Well, we'll give you $600,000. Then he tells the player, okay, jump. You're going to let an agent control your life? A guy that he's making more money, so he's feathering his own nest. He doesn't have your best interest in mind. He has his best interest in mind.
Yeah, Mike, it's something. Yeah.
No, I don't mean to cut you off,
no,
but to bring it kind of full circle, that's a great example of what Mike is talking about, of how you would hope that a situation like this would bring light to all of this and kind of make changes happen, because we've talked extensively about it. It's ridiculous that at this point in college football, when you look at the NFL or any other professional sports league, agents are held, they have to pass a certification and they are held to a specific standard, and they cannot make more than a certain percentage of money on contracts made. There's none of that in college football, and people don't know that. Mike Irwin could go represent Evan Kamiko down the street. Evan Kamiko doesn't know any better, and Mike could say, and I'm going to take 40% of what that could happen, right? And so bringing
it has happened.
Routinely in situations like this have happened in a lot less high-profile cases. You would hope that this brings attention and says, man, we got to change this and make it better.
And Jacob, it's interesting because you and I both graduated, less than 2 years ago from college, so we really saw the beginning of this. And I saw friends, and maybe you were the same way at Syracuse, where they were trying to become NIL agents and didn't really know anything because of all the gray area. And now, I think to your exact point, we're going to start to get, really defined terms when it comes to all of these things. We hope, of course, we hope.
Yeah.
But you've got to think that this starts to get the ball rolling. All right, one more topic before we go to break. We got to talk a little bit about men's basketball. Boogie Flan entering the transfer portal yesterday. Mike, I'm curious, what do you think about this? Is it all for nothing? Or is it, maybe he could end up playing college basketball next year?
Well, if you look at some of it, it's always difficult to know who you're dealing with on the internet. But there's a mock draft that's actually showing him below or going lower or in the second round maybe, and Carter Knox is actually more draftable. So what if that ends up a flip? Carter Knox, who they thought was just going there to get some feedback and is coming back, what if he decides to stay? And Boogie then, he's apparently put himself in the portal just in case, and he may be looking at that and going, I'll go somewhere else. I've seen no indication that he'd be looking to come back. And I don't know how that would work because they've already got a freshman top point guard in the country out of high school, and they got Wagner back. Do you want 3 point guards? They still are looking for a shooting guard, a scoring forward, which I don't think Boogie Fland is. So I don't see him coming back here. Not going to rule it out, but what looked like a sure bet that Carter Knox was just, getting feedback and he would come back. Now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, we've seen that in the NFL draft with a guy like Isaac Tesla and Landon Jackson. Now you're seeing it a little bit, Jacob, in the NBA draft, and even though we're really, really, really early in this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from the Boogie Flam perspective, obviously, fans reacted to that because it was shocking to me when I got the John Rothstein tweet notification, whatever it might be. But it's just a matter of he has to keep all his options open, right? Because as Mike just alluded to, the transfer portal's closing for men's basketball. So if he doesn't do that and all of a sudden he goes through all of the draft process, and for a while it's looked like, man, he's going to be a first-round pick no matter what, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, even if it was an injury down the road, right, he re-aggravates the thumb or something, he starts getting bad feedback, then you come back, and Mike laid it out perfectly. You're all of a sudden staring down Boogie Fland, a guy who's really, really talented, is looking and saying, man, that is a lot of backcourt pieces in the kitchen, and there is one ball, and I am a point guard, and I am a ball-dominant guard. And not only then, if that was the situation, do you worry about, what am I going to do next season? But his focus has to be rehabbing his image for next year's NBA draft. And all of this is completely hypothetical. It seems like he's still 100% locked in on the NBA draft. But that's what this was. It was him keeping his options open, and we'll see what it ultimately plays out. But I think the focus, like Mike talked about, is Carter Knox, because that's that last retention piece and a stretch forward that Arkansas really, really needs on next year's roster.
Yeah, only interesting what time will tell us about the NBA draft. And to your point, it's what we do here on PTN Extra. We talk about hypotheticals. But big thanks to Jacob Morris and Mike Irwin for joining the show. When we come back, TJ Tomlyanovich of the Arkansas men's track and field team joins the show. That's coming up next. Stick around on PTN Extra. Welcome back into PTN Extra. Super excited to have a special guest with us joining the show today. That's TJ Tomlyanovich, a senior sprinter on the Arkansas men's track and field team. TJ, thanks for coming to the studio today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Absolutely is. Let's start kind of from the beginning with your track and field journey. You're from Iowa. You end up at Arkansas. What got you into track and field to start?
Actually, it's I got hurt in football and then went out for cross country that next year. I realized, hey, I actually don't hate this that much. Led to track, and then before I knew it, track and cross country was my entire year.
What position did you play football-wise?
Oh, I only played until 5th and 6th grade, but believe it or not, I was a tiny little kid, and I was playing defensive end.
Oh, really?
So that
did you have a lot of speed when you got off the end? What was that like?
I think that's what the strategy was. Yeah. Just get around the O-line there. Unfortunately, it didn't work out too well, and I think running ended up being the
Well, I was going to say, I think it did work out because you found your way to track and field and eventually to Arkansas. I'm curious, what was the recruitment process like for you when, you're starting to say, maybe I do want to do this at the highest level, and then you start talking to Coach Bucknam and his assistant coaches. What was your recruitment process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was one of those classes that was severely impacted by COVID-19. I did not get a junior year track season, and I grew quite a lot between my sophomore and senior year. So I went into that senior year season, and I had no clue what my potential was. I always did track for fun. It wasn't super serious for me, but our first few meets of the year, I made some massive leaps, and I was really thrilled. But it was competing at the next level was still just not anything on my radar at all. And I actually did not really run a great time until the very end of my senior year in May at our state meet. And then by then, a lot of other guys had signed. My friends all knew where they were going to college. And I'm sitting here with coaches from all over reaching out and deciding at that point as well, is this something I'm going to do in the future? And then ultimately, I got a call from Coach Case at Arkansas. We set up a visit, and then, the rest was history. He got me down in Fayetteville, and I knew this was going to be my home.
Why Arkansas? How did you know, right? Like, people say, oh, the area is awesome. There's so many reasons. And again, when you're in a program like Arkansas Track and Field, it's hard to turn that down. But why for you, Arkansas?
Oh, well, multiple things. First, it's just a vibe of when I get down to this track program, these guys mean business. And Coach Case is phenomenal. Coach Buck was wonderful. I knew that just talking to these guys on the visit, if I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to do this thing right, there's no other place. This staff, this program, these training guys, everything, the way it's set up here, actually, as Coach Buck was giving a speech yesterday, he said it's Olympic style. If I want to do this to the best I can, there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, I think you made the right decision there when it comes to the best that you can. But then you get here, your freshman year, you run in the indoors, set a record at the Tyson in the 800 meter, didn't run in the outdoors. Curious for you, what was the hardest adjustment going from I don't really know where I'm going to be in college to now being a D1 runner here at Arkansas?
Oh, yeah, it was a huge adjustment. In all honesty, it took me 2 full years of training. I did not post very impressive times my freshman, sophomore year, but thankfully, the coaches, they saw some potential in me. They invested in me, and it really helped to pay off. Just going from the casual, fun, high school level commitment and environment to real deal, everyday, high training volumes, high intensity. It took me physically, mentally, getting the routine, getting the strength down. It took me a few years to really adapt and get to where I am now.
And I guess because college is so different than high school, but there's still the team aspect. How much did you rely on, and who were some of the guys that you relied on early on that you looked up to that, you could say, I could see myself being in this guy's shoes and one day, taking things from him, that I can be that leader eventually when you are now a senior?
Oh, every year I've been here, I've had incredible teammates, a lot of older guys. I'm finally the older guy, but I was just thinking about this actually. I had spectacular role models. In my time here, I had James Benson and Chris Bailey on the team. A lot of people who don't know them personally, they're both fantastic dudes. They were great role models. They saw me and my weaknesses and where I was struggling, and they helped offer me, some advice. They helped me through the workouts. They were really great role models, and I don't know if I'd be here today with all the progress I've made if I wasn't blessed to have those 2 guys in my corner pushing me and helping me reach my potential.
Well, if you don't know who Chris Bailey is, I would say go Google him right now, because if you're a fan of Arkansas Track and Field, you should know Chris Bailey, one of the best runners in the United States. But let's flash forward now to last season. That's when you really started to grow, like you already said, setting a gold medal relay in the 4x400 indoor and outdoor. What was that season like for you, where you're finally starting to see all of that work you did finally start paying off with the results you want?
Yeah, all that progress, it didn't really come to fruition until outdoor season last year. It's a great story about that relay. If you watch college track, it always comes down to the 4x4, and it's a drama, messy race, but that's what I live for. I love it. At our SEC meet in the 400-meter prelims, I ran a personal best of 45.76 there, and I was on the relay. We'd not really run any stacked relays yet. But running that time, Coach Case came up to me, he said, "You're our new leadoff. That's what we need. It's good enough." And in that moment, it was a beautiful, hot Florida day, and the meet was on the line. For anyone who remembers, whoever won that relay was the SEC champ. And I had just broken through that week, finally reached that next step, and I'm thrown into the blocks with the baton, the entire meet on the line, everyone's performances before. It's all down to this 4x4. And Lance Lang, who was also on that relay, he came up to me, he said, "Listen, man, you can do it. Just get us in the mix." And I promised those guys I'd run my heart out. I believe I led off in 45.5, and then we ran 2:59.03, won the relay by 100th of a second, SEC champs, had the world lead. And that was really the beginning of what gave me that confidence and that momentum to continue out the rest of my season.
And you parlayed that into a pretty cool summer, being at least out in Oregon for the U.S. Olympic trials. What was that experience like, and what'd you learn from that? I know, obviously, didn't end up going to the Olympics, but there's still a lot to take away, getting to a stage where, millions of kids around the country dream of at least having a shot that you got.
Oh, it was so incredible. I mean, I could talk about it all day.
Please do.
There were so many amazing things that resulted from that. Well, first and foremost, the Olympic trials. I mean, it's such a prestigious honor. It's something I never even thought about. Like, especially I was running for fun when I was younger. I didn't even know that was a thing that was attainable. But it was at the West Regionals meet. In that first round, I ran 45.2, and I was electric. Never even thought I could run that fast at that time. And I walk off there, and my teammates come up to me. They said, "You just qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials." And it took a minute for that to set in, and what that even meant. But it was an incredible experience going out there. And running was amazing. Racing against the pros, competing at the highest level of track and field, and just exceeding all my own expectations and goals. I had to make all new goals, which I'm pursuing now. But the biggest impact for that, to me, was the community where I grew up really rallied around me in a way that I'd never felt before. Obviously, high school track, you find yourself in the paper every once in a while, but there were, like you said, hundreds of younger kids from the Cedar Valley, where I grew up, messaging me saying, "It was incredible to see you there. It was on the news. They talked about it." And just talking to other kids who were similar to me, who didn't know that it was possible to, get to these levels, run this fast, because I was one of them. I wasn't an insane high school standout or anything. But that meant a lot to me, because I wish when I was in high school or that age, I wish I would have met somebody who said, "Don't limit yourself. I mean, you can do this." I never had a role model like that, and I didn't know what was possible. Like, I was imposing limits on myself, like, oh, my life goal was to run 45. I wanted to run 45.9, and then I'd be set for life. It's because I had this idea that there were these barriers that kids, I mean, you don't see those 45s in Iowa like you do down in Texas in high school or anything like that. It was just breaking through and then seeing some other kids inspired, and hopefully they can see what I've done growing up similar to them and realize that you just got to go for it. We get one shot, and set your goals as high as you can.
Who was the first call you made when you found out you made the Olympic trials?
Actually, this is really funny. My high school track coach was a phenomenal runner by the name of Dirk Homewood. He actually ran for Coach Case back at Northern Iowa. And I remember when I was younger, his personal best in the 400 was 45.3, which to all of us was like a fake time. Incredible. How can anyone ever run that fast? And when I ran that 45.2, I found Coach Case, and I called Coach Homewood, and I said, "Guess what? I just beat your 400 time." And he's a great guy. He was super excited for me. And that was the first call. It was a great moment.
It's hard not to be. When you got back from the Olympic trial and then you start getting ready for this season, what was, I think, I'm curious, and I think a lot of people are, of when you have an experience like that, how do you almost ground yourself back from being here at Arkansas? In a sense of, like, how do you go from, wow, I was just at the U.S. Olympic trials, like, with all these bests, to now, like, okay, it's a different game, it's a different ball game here. Like, how do you get back in that mentality of being at Arkansas again and having to get ready mentally for an indoor and an outdoor season?
Yeah, well, my Olympic trials experience is incredible, and I'm so grateful for it, but it didn't end up the way I wanted, especially. I attribute a lot of that to just figuring out how to run fast, how to stay consistent and peak for so long. In the second round, I didn't put up a very great race, and ultimately I did not make it to the end goal there, but I learned so much from the experience, and it was a really high-level meet, but it wasn't all that different. I had my teammates there, Chris Bailey and James Benson, next to me in those 400s. A lot of other guys I competed with in the season, and it didn't really feel all that different. I knew the stakes were higher, but it was no different than any other meet when we go out there and we just need to compete. And going into this year, it was just a lot of motivation and fuel. Like Coach Buck always says, if you run fast one time, that's great. You need to do it again and prove that this is really what you do and this is how you remember this team. And to me, it was just fuel for the indoor season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it. Sorry, I wanted to talk about the indoor season. I'm glad we got there. You guys have a phenomenal indoor season, and then at the end, the really tough finish. You were a part of that 4x400 meter relay team that if you've seen it, there's a lot of questionable moments, and there is a specific one in the beginning where it seems like an A&M runner basically, pushed you guys out of the way. What was that like of, getting there? And if you guys won that, again, another title, but unfortunately the cards just didn't fall out. Coach Buck and company tried to appeal. They lost the appeal and all of that. How hard was that moment, for you when you look back on it, saying we were so close, but we know what this team is made of?
Yeah, we had 3 entries in the Open 400 there. Myself, Brandon Battle, and Jaden Smith. So we had 3 guys qualify for nationals in the Open 4, and we had faith in our relay. I mean, we're the toughest squad of 4 out there for sure. And the whole meet, once again, like everything, it came down to the 4x4. I was standing there. I was supposed to anchor that relay, and I mean, my heart just dropped into my stomach when I saw Steven fall off the track there. But that's just a part of the sport. I mean, I don't really think there's too much good of going back into it or any names or whatever like that. But track's a competitive sport, and oftentimes it becomes a contact sport. And this is just part of it. Obviously, we filed the appeal. We were hoping for a rerun. There was not really any precedent on that, so unfortunately it was not granted for us. But it was heartbreaking in the moment. Obviously, we had a shot to win the relay. We had full confidence that we'd be able to fight it out till the end. But that's part of sports in general, is there's this unpredictable heartbreak nature, and that's what makes it so, blissful. The highs are high and the lows are low, but ultimately we got to learn from it and move on and just focus on what we're at now.
And so now let's talk about what you're at now. You just got back from the Mount Sac relays out in California. What was that like? And kind of when you look at the outdoor season right now and coming off of the poor ending of the indoor season, what excites you about this outdoor team in this upcoming season?
No, we've got a phenomenal team. I mean, the program as a whole, we have so much talent, so much depth. A lot of us, we had our season openers at Mount Sac. All of our 400 guys on that 4x4 there. First race of the year, all opened up in the mid-45s, which was phenomenal for us. I'm not sure if you saw the end of the relay at Mount Sac, but that was another track's a contact sport, 4x4's drama. That was great fun. I believe we're second in college at that time. I think we got edged out a little bit by Florida at the end there in a different meet. But it was a great opener. I mean, we had great performances. Jordan Anthony and the breaking 10 in the 100 was great. Our 200 guys ran well. And across the board, I just have a lot of confidence in the team and the program. Everything, not just coming down to the 4x4.
Yeah, Jordan Anthony running the 9.98 and talking after about losing his aunt was really, inspiring just to see what he's done and what he was able to do on a heavy heart, being somewhere where he grew up. But for you, TJ, what's a successful 2025 outdoor season, not only as a team, but you individually?
I tie a lot of my success to the team. I mean, those are my ultimate goals. That's what we're doing here. Of course, the goal always, All-American in the event, qualify for nationals, and then post-collegiate season, the United States trials are in the end of July to hopefully compete for the U.S. team in Japan this year. And it's just one step at a time. So the next really big meet we're going to have is conference. Obviously, Arkansas, we love to go for that conference title individually and as a team. And then from there, it's a grueling path to nationals for people unaware. You have 2 rounds of regionals there where you need to be top in your event, and it's tons of talent. You got to get through there. Got to qualify for nationals. That's a big step. And then just take it one meet after there. You just have to take each race and try to move on, survive in advance.
Not to mention it all starts this Friday back here at the John McDonnell Invitational. How excited are you to be out there and run in front of the fans here at Arkansas?
Oh, I love our home stadium. We just got that new track resurfaced, beautiful stands, great meet environment too. We do a lot of fun stuff too. Like I think we have a student 4x100 relay, which is always just great to watch. Our track meets are really fun, and we have such a great fan base in Northwest Arkansas. I mean, our support for track is amazing, and it's an honor to run in front of the fans. A lot of families there to meet them, hear their cheers, and It's just a blessing to wear the Hog jersey and compete at home.
Not to mention when the sun goes down over the stadium and you kind of see it in the mountains.
Beautiful.
I think that's one of like
It's
my
beautiful.
favorite views
Yeah.
in the entire Arkansas sports, whether that's Razorback Stadium, Baum Walker, the John McDonald track
yeah.
and field. It is just awesome. So TJ, last question I'll ask you because I love asking people this. If you had one word to describe the 2025 outdoor team, indoor team as well, can be whatever you choose, what would that word be?
They're unrelentless.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Why so?
Everyone's a fighter. That's a whole team full of fighters. You watch the distance guys race, you watch the sprinters race, you watch the jumpers jump. Everyone competes through the line to the very end. I mean, this is a tough team. They have their priorities straight, and they're going to go places.
Absolutely. TJ, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
the show this week. That's going to do it for PTN Extra. For TJ Tomlyanovich, I'm Evan Kamiko saying so long, and we'll see you right back here next Wednesday on PTN Extra.